Hey everybody, I'm that one guy, and I wanted to create a series of videos to go over the Weakauras I've created. The whole purpose of the Weakauras is obviously to help you better understand your spec and hopefully help you play better as a result, but also to gamify the game. Because WoW does present you with some spell alerts for the specs you play, but not all. And so that leaves you looking for ways to identify if a certain buff or debuff is active. And that's where Weakauras can come in play. And I wanted to do more than just have an icon with a timer in it, right? I wanted to try to present you with visual effects that make it feel more like a video game and immerse you more into the spec you're playing. At least that's the idea. So in these videos, I'm going to go over the Weakauras I've created, how I intend for them to work, and show you how you can modify them if you'd like. So whether you've already found my Weakauras, or you're looking for some for a certain spec, or you just want to have a better idea of how Weakauras work in general, hopefully these videos will help you with that. Let's talk Prot Paladin. So if you've seen any of my other Paladin Weakura videos that I've made, or you've downloaded any of the other ones, you know that there is a general Paladin class abilities section that I put inside each of the packs for the specific specs, so they don't have to ship two different things or recreate that 3 times. What that means is if you've downloaded Holy, Prot, and Ret, you'll have this 3 times. And you don't need it 3 times, you can just delete it and just save one of them. You see, I set it up with just having it outside of it so that I can modify just the stuff that's true for all of the specs and then go into each one individually when I need to touch stuff that's just for those. So if this is your first time watching it, you'll notice one thing right off the bat, and that is wings, right? I talked about gamifying the game and adding more visual effects. When you proc wings, right, when you cast Sentinel or you cast Avenging Wrath, you will get wings on your character and wings on your screen. That's it. Just a nice visual cue that you've procced wings. I like to push the button and get that visual feedback. Yes, I know you have them on your character, but I'm usually trying to look in this general vicinity because that's where my target is. Right? You see there's a bunch of other information I'm going to put there. The other thing you'll see is 2 different types of holy power because I'm a bit indecisive. So you'll see it at the bottom here, right? These are not Weakauras, by the way. These are just 2 action bars that I've placed the icons on. This is typically where I look to track my cooldowns, or at least the bigger ones, the ones that have longer cooldowns, and my shorter cooldowns, I started to use more of a heads-up display that I'll show you here in just a few seconds. This right here is also a Holy Power Tracker, like I said, as is this, just because, again, I like to try to keep my eyes on my target so I can see when there's an interrupt I need to do, I can see when there's a mechanic I need to step out of, right? Whether it's a frontal cone or a circle, nothing feels worse than standing in a mechanic that you clearly should have stepped out of. And you might be asking, why is it blue? That is a conditional effect when you proc the tier set. So when you proc the tier set as a Prot Paladin, which I can't do here because these dummies aren't going to damage me, but when you proc the tier set as a Prot Paladin, it'll turn blue, right? That lets you know that your tier set is active and react accordingly. There'll also be a progress tracker bar at the bottom if you're more familiar with that. When you don't have the tier set, they're just this regular gold color. But hey, let's decide you want it to be blue all the time because that's your favorite color. You can change that pretty easily. It's this one right here. Whenever you're messing around with Weakauras, there will be a box around the pack or the item that you are dealing with. And if you wanted to change the color of them, you go right to display and color, right? And you're not going to see it right up front on here because, again, it's showing you one of the conditions I've set. But if you wanted to change the color of it, you'd go here. You see this is where I picked gold, or what I've decided is gold. But you could change the color there. You could also change a few other settings. If you wanted it to be in a different spot, you don't like where it is, you go into this group, and it'll, because again there's individual things in here, and change the location of the entire group, right? Or maybe you want it off to the side. If you want it to be vertical instead of horizontal, that's doable, right? I trust that you might know how to do that. Otherwise, you would literally just try to go in and change each of these individually to either go top to bottom, right, or bottom to top. You would just change each of their X and Y offsets until you had them vertically instead of horizontal, if that's something you wanted to do. Other than that, you got Divine Purpose, and you have a cast bar, and your mana if you care about that. Divine Resonance exists in this pack, but I don't have it loaded for Prot because I don't think it too much matters. You're not generating holy power from your shield, sad day. So it's just something that happens. If you care to track that as well, you can click on Divine Resonance, go into load, and then check Prot. And then it'll let you know those ticks as each time it's going to cast another shield. So if you really cared to know, you would just check that box, and now when you activate Divine Toll, that bar will show up. right? As for the Prot specific things, ooh, didn't want to do that. I do want the Holy Power to be there though. But for Prot specific, I've added a few things. Okay, one of the first things you'll notice is Light's Deliverance. That's from the hero talent, same thing as Ret if you saw that one. From Templar, whenever the hammer is castable or when you ever have the free one, you will see that. So again, if you're just going along and you're playing, you may not remember to look or even want to look every now and then to see like, oh, do I have the free one? Can I cast it? Can I cast it? It's just going to pop up there. If you have it and it's castable, you can push it, right? And then the same thing is true, like you'll get it after using Eye of Tear because it gives you 3 Holy Power. But let's just say you used Eye of Tear and then you cast Shield of Righteousness and you forgot, right? Well, that won't show up unless you can actually push the buttons. That's the only thing to remember. If that shows up, you can use that hammer from the hero talents. After that, like I said, I've started to go more towards like a heads-up display because for shorter cooldowns, I got tired of like just having to check down here because I want to keep my eyes up right where around my targets are, right? And also that's why I've added the Holy Power here. So these are your charges of Blessed Hammer. These are your charges of Judgment. And then this is when your Hammer of Wrath is usable. And if you're in single target or you have Hammer of Righteous, it would be those, okay? Those are your charges of it. They'll only show up in combat if you want them to show up all the time, right? You go to load, and oh, I've got Light's Deliverance checked too. You'd go to the load tab and you'd uncheck that so that they show all the time. Green means they'll only show in combat. Red means they won't show in combat and will only show out of combat. This means they'll show all the time, okay? Have it set to just in combat because otherwise they'll be there as long as there's 3 charges of Blessed Hammer. So I think as you're going about what you're doing, you don't want to have to see those hanging out in the middle of your screen. And then same would be true for Hammer of Righteous. If you don't like those, you're like, I like everything else about this pack, or I only like a few things about this pack, and I really hate that. Just right click it, I should say, delete Children and Group. If you want to move it around, right? If you feel like, well, I'm okay with it, I just don't like where it is, I want it at the bottom, or I want it, again, maybe you like things vertical, that's possible to do. There's 3 things you can move around until they're vertical instead of horizontal. Or, again, you could change where they are just vertically. Or if you're like real big on the color, that one get a little trickier. You'd have to go to these hammers that are purple. You'll start to see how I created the images. It's a lot of stacking and overlay of other images. And then same thing for Judgment. It's called Proud Judgment because there's a different Judgment for Ret. But that is this image right here. And again, pretty straightforward. If you have 2 charges of Judgment, you will see 2 little Judgment hammers there. Okay? And then that is for Hammer of Wrath. And yes, I know that this looks like it's the actual icon for Judgment just backwards, and this looks like a regular hammer, and that's true. But it's because as I was creating these, I created this first for Ret, and I didn't want to use that symbol. And then I came over to making it for Prot, and I was like, oh, well, I kind of need 2 hammer symbols for Blessed Hammer and Judgment. Here we are. And again, this just means that your Hammer of Wrath is castable. And it makes a nice little pyramid, I think, with this cool little symbol up top. The other things being Sanctuary, which is hidden right now by Grand Crusader. Sanctuary, if you are standing in your consecration, you will see that. It will start to fade, right? So you can step outside of your consecration, or your consecration goes away, and this will start to tick down, right? That should be a visual cue to you to either recast your consecration, right? Or realize you've stepped outside of it and get back in. Okay, so if you don't like that, because that's going to be there all the time, right? We can talk about making that either just one bar that's underneath your character, or doing something to change it. Again, I'm big on symmetry and having the same thing on both sides. So that's why I have it set up like that for Sanctuary. And Grand Crusader, this is just a remake of what already exists in WoW's UI. But again, I like to be in control of what color they can be, where they are, and their size. So I think I've made it a little skinnier, and I might have moved it out just a smidge. But that one, you already know what that is. And you can change this. One thing I changed about it is in its trigger, right? It's every time you proc Grand Crusader that'll show up, and it's timed, so it shows for 2 seconds, right? Because there's no real buff, it's just tracking, it's just telling you when you've activated essentially an aura called Grand Crusader. And I think the live one, or sorry, the one on Blizz that they've provided is 3 seconds. I made it 2. You can shorten this, right? You're like, I only care to know about it for a whole GCD. Maybe you only went for 1.5 seconds or 1 second, right? You just want to see it and then have it go away. But right now it's 2 seconds. You could change the duration of it if you wanted. If you want it to be up there longer, absolutely, it'll stay up there as long as you tell it to, or as short as you tell it to. And then the last few things would just be Shining Light, right? So every Hammer of Righteous, or sorry, every Shield of Righteousness, after you get to 3, you get a free Word of Glory. That's what that's tracking. And it stacks up to 2 times, right? So, and here you can see the fun little charges that kind of pop up. Again, making it so that you can keep your eyes here and have all the information you care to know the whole time, right? There's your free Word of Glory. It'll go up to 2 though, and so when it's at its second charge, it'll be the same image, just kind of twisted, and it'll look like it's glowing a little bit more than it is. So just the difference is, whoops, if I cast it, that doesn't help. You'll never see it now. We'll get there again, one way or the other. Okay, there. You can see this is when it's at 2, 1, right? Just another kind of visual effect that lets you know, hey, that's at 2 charges. The only thing I'm not really tracking would be like your Avenger Shield cooldown, just because, one, that can be reset. I feel like you already have something that's letting you know about it as a visual reminder if it gets reset. Otherwise, that's something I feel like you could kind of check. This would be for the Shield of Bastion, right? It gives you 5 judgments. Your next 5 judgments give you additional holy power, so this lets you know how many of those you have left. Sorry, that one, not Shining Light. Bastion of Light. Shining Light's the one we just talked about with Word of Glory. And then this one I haven't figured out another cool way to track it. It's literally just your Shield of Righteousness, the buff you get from it. It's just that at the bottom. There's probably a better way to show it, a better way to have more video game feel. But again, especially since I'm trying to keep my eyes up here, it would probably be best for me to have something in this general vicinity. I'll use my mouse instead of my hands. This general vicinity that also shows your Shield of Righteousness, but I feel like that's just something you're aiming to keep up. The only thing you're really gaming with it is the duration, right? If you have multiple procs back to back, or multiple holy power spenders back to back of it, like, yeah, you'll want to make sure you don't, overcap the max duration of it. But outside of that, I feel like that's just something you're either already aware of or can pick up pretty easily, or maybe not worrying about entirely. But then it's just the tier set. Like I said, this will turn blue when the tier set's active. I can't activate it unless I try to get hit by a dummy or something else. But they'll turn blue when it's active, or you'll see, like I said, a progress bar ticking down right here. That's it for Prot. Like I said, I've really started to like this kind of heads-up display stuff that only shows when you're in combat, because I want to know what charges I have available to me instead of having to look down, especially for short cooldowns like Blessed Hammer and Judgment. I don't want to have to keep looking down there to see, right? I want to be able to see what's going on in front of me and let me know if I need to interrupt a cast, right? Or stun somebody, or literally anything else, step aside from a mechanic. Or since I have other information up here, like, oh, my Sanctuary is gone, I should probably cast that. But that's why I've preferred things like that. I enjoy it. I don't think it's too cluttered. You might, and it's not going to be for everybody. If you have any questions about it, or there's something you feel like I left out that should be added for Prot, let me know. Again, I hope you found that helpful. I do intend to make a Weakura pack for every spec. So if I haven't made one for the spec that you play or that you'd like to see, just comment that down below. Again, I do intend to make one for every spec, but if I see people asking for it or really wanting one, I'll probably get to it quicker than if I just do it on my slow, leisurely pace. I hope it will enhance your gameplay. Like I said, it's all about gamifying the game and making it more fun and more immersive for you, while also helping you improve as a player, because the information that you need to react to is hopefully more readily available. If you have any other questions about this Weakura pack that you just watched, or any other ones, again, please feel free to comment. I try to be as interactive as possible in my YouTube section. And that's it. I hope you have a great day.